Oh, right. I figured I would continue with this. So please excuse the mess behind me. There's a pile of artwork here to that I'm copying on Etsy. But anyway, so we got to the stages of womanhood in our Tay of Tantric Arts for Women. So I'm going to continue. So we are on page 35 in her story. So connecting, and we've been working with this group. I'll try and put the links to the other videos if you haven't. I started obviously at the beginning. Each of these videos is me talking, reading the book, but also me adding my opinions, insights, and suggestions along the way. You are just my humble opinions. You do not have to follow any of them. Obviously, all of this is advice. This is a beautiful book written by Milka DeVos, who I highly recommend you buying. I am not an affiliate. I just really resonate with the information in this book, with my own journey of learning as a Qigong trainer. So, stages of womanhood. Each of us moves through multiple stages of development from childhood to adulthood and beyond. While the times of transition can be difficult, the essence within us seeks to evolve and can help us move from each stage to the next. That essence is the form of sexual energy, exists in the body from the time of conception and its cultivation throughout our lives. This is what we call the yin energy, or in Qigong, we reference to this as like the energy that you get from it's hereditary, that's the energy that's passed down hereditary. I also want to add an intercept in here in terms of psychology and what we know about brain development. Everything up until the age, we're like a sponge as children at the age of 6, we are taking on board. So this means that if someone says boys don't cry or money's the root of all evil, that goes into this kind of bucket of our subconscious and kind of sits there and so what I think of this in terms of, you've got this bucket or these attachments, all these little threads that are there that can contribute to our personalities and our beliefs and concepts and perceptions about ourselves and the world around us as we go through adulthood. But in terms of energy, we can kind of clear out that bucket. We can start to pull these threads, and we don't necessarily have to pull them individually when we're doing energetical work. Anyway, I'm going to clean on, but I think it's important to have an understanding of that, and that modern day science actually does know that when we're rewiring our brain and our thinking, with cognitive behavior, with neurolinguistic programming, all of these kind of practices, there's many more therapies that are out there to help us to shift some of those. There's obviously the energetical as well. So in the fetus, sexual energy is creating a body. So it's the creation energy, which we can actually create. So it's that energy that creates matter on the micro level. And this goes much more in depth when you get into Kaphoric understanding of how things are created. But we can also utilize this energy in a different way as we go through the menopause when we're older into the creative projects. It's where our energy, our focus goes, is where our energy will flow. So the sexual energy is part of that, is why I wanted to add. So anyway, sorry, no more interruptions for a while. In the fetus, sexual energy is creating a body. In childhood, sexual energy prepares the body for puberty. During the teen years, it nurtures desire in hunting for a mate. During adulthood, it is creating family, service, and tribes. In elder times, sexual energy moves more inward into wisdom. And I recently saw a friend of mine did a little talk on this about how this relates to how the hormones change in women. That doesn't actually need to happen. I know that that's a promised medicine, but when you understand your own energy systems, you can change. You can also dictate when that happens by understanding your energy, speeding that up, slowing that down. The cycles of a woman are very different when she's in her sovereign energy, because she can move from solar energy, from a more lunar cycle to a solar cycle, which is longer. So again, cultivating the energy in a different way, when we learn how to do this, that can shift as well. It's really important to understand this, because you have power. A lot of us feel like, well, we don't, but there's plenty of science out there, for example, that talks about how meditation, when you are connecting and working with your energy systems by coming out of the reptilian part of the brain that we're actually evolving out of, and into, instead of the sympathetic nervous system, just into the nervous out of our fight or flight brain and our sympathetic nervous system, and area where everything's on high alert. When we're more in the breath, when we're breathing slower through meditation, things like the telomeres, which will dictate your longevity, growing older, sort of how the brain chemistry works, how all of that, they can lengthen. So there's some interesting research. I highly recommend you delve for yourself and have a little look, because I think you might be surprised. So the sexual energy in an older person moves more inward into the wisdom stage. So it's that going within, and these different cycles that we mentioned before. Just briefly, I'm going to, for those that haven't watched that video, refer to that video, but the spring, summer, autumn, winter. You see this in paganism when they speak about maiden, mother, crone. You see it in other cultures will tackle this understanding through the dynamics of the archetypes that we're shown within goddess. And in the ancients, it wasn't that it was a magical goddess, it was the essence of that in everything. So they knew that everything was all one, but they labeled these different things to show you the different aspects of it. And in a similar way with the energies, the fire, earth, metal. In Chinese, you have the elements. So you've got spring, summer, autumn, and winter that have been referred to here in regards to the different cycles and times in our life. We can help ourselves and those around us move through the stages of womanhood with grace by supporting the appropriate expressions of sexual energy at each stage. So how you deal with that energy at each stage, and having an understanding of that can help cultivate that in the right way for you to have the best healthy habits, body, healthy understanding of your own energy systems. The supportive practices mentioned in this chapter will be explained further in the following chapters. So in following videos, we're going to that. Teen development. The teen years are exceptional time for physical, emotional, and sexual development. That doesn't mean that they need to be sexually active, but supporting young girls as they approach those tumultuous changes will help them become the strong, multifaceted women they are meant to be. Now, I feel this is really important, so I'm going to add a little bit to this and a little personal note, a caveat here. So my mum was ill around the time that I became a woman. I was very lucky in the fact that I was living with my best friend's nan, who was very experienced. She was in her winter, in her wise woman. She showed me some practical ways to do with that. And she taught me it wasn't something to be afraid of, but it was still a scary time, because when it actually happened, I didn't realize, because I had no idea that blood went brown as I was a young girl. So I thought oh, I've had an accident, not realizing what that was. And tried to sort of hide that to clean it myself. And she called me up on it. And I'm really grateful to her, to Nell, for showing me that it isn't something to be afraid of. She showed me how to boil things to get stains out with salt. So on a practical note, but also that it's a natural thing, and sat me down and explained stuff. Now, so I was lucky, but it wasn't my mum still. So I've kind of made it very clear way before they need to know. I'm very, very open with my children. If they have any questions, I feel it's important that they feel comfortable enough to ask. So I've always had that policy. And it doesn't mean that it pushes them. In fact, if anything, it might scare them off a little bit, because understanding that there is repercussions, they don't know all the details, then they're too young for that, but there's still stuff that you can explain. A really, really, really good book for younger ones that I highly recommend. Let me see if I can pause this and get it up so you've got a screenshot of this, because this book by Dr. Christian Norfolk, beautifully illustrated, but talks about things in a way that a child would understand, but knows that their body is sacred and only they are, no one else should be touching that. And it kind of puts things in place for them to value themselves. So let me pause this for a second. I will interject this, I think it's important. Well, I ran and grabbed my daughter's copy because they changed the cover. So, and this will be backwards, I think, on this. So this is Beautiful Girl by Christian Norfolk. So celebration of the wonders of the body. Christian Norfolk, MD, with Christian Trace. With Christina Tracy. Illustrations by Ariana Benz. Look that up. It's going to be backwards, isn't it? Okay, right. So this is the copy that I had from a few years ago, and the illustrations just are absolutely beautiful. Just to give you an idea, they've changed it and they've put a different one cover. So imagine yourself lying on a soft blanket of grass in the warm sun. Doesn't it feel good on your skin? Your body is made to enjoy all sorts of good feelings, and as you get older, they will get stronger. This is just nature's way of telling you that you are growing up. And little things like that. The sea, what was the nest? It's beautiful. And the absolutely beautiful illustration. Sorry to show that one here. So this is just glorious, I think, as well, and colourful. But someday you may decide to become a mother yourself. And because you were born a beautiful girl, you already have a little nest inside of you. This nest waits and grows and prepares for the time when you are ready to create a new life. It is a miracle, just like you are a miracle. So I will show you what it looks like now as I share my screen. So this is the Hay House. It obviously was published by Hay House. So it shows you some of the illustrations there. They have changed. Some of them are the same. And some of them, they've updated that. The only children's book by New York's best-selling author, Dr. Christian Norfolk, now available in a new format and packaged, as well as added meditations, co-author with the New York Times best-selling Christina Tracy, she's co-author of the book, takes up the timely topics of girls' empowerment and the body positivity. The reason I wanted to interject this is I think this is so important that we start at a young age to understanding how, that's why I mentioned in those first years. So if you have an issue with your own body and you have children, for example, or nieces and nephews even, or you teach young children or you're around in any way, you're they're soaking up like a sponge all that information. So if you are someone that comes from an abuse, and maybe you feel very like this, they pick up subconsciously on those things, that's the thing to fear. And then that obviously opens us energetically up to that identifying with the victim, in a sense. So it's very important, and I'll add that, interject that in a later with my own experience of that with my mum and her trauma and how that affected me, and actually how I've overcome and let go of that historical, stopped those lines in our family, myself and my cousin both. So I think that's very, very important to know, okay? That it doesn't have to be sex that you're telling them about. At that age, you wouldn't be telling them that. But there are things like respecting their body and understanding, like when they wash you, like to wash themselves, they need to know how to wash themselves. So I, as a mum, and with a history of, for myself, for someone that my boundaries have been my innocence, and I had been taken and not in and when I say innocence, it doesn't mean fully, like, it does, I'm not referring to rape even our understanding of things, even knowing stuff too early, for example, seeing stuff on the telly, visually seeing stuff on YouTube. Nowadays we have to be really aware of all of this, and that how women are portrayed, and allowing them to say that's not really a positive, like I will say that's not a positively identifying. But like we were speaking in the previous video about dancing and understanding, so movement and creativity, which is why this unit energy is connected to creative arts, crafts, making things. It's channeling that creative energy that can create a baby into creating things in the same way. So you can be aware of the movement of your body, and when you dance, you need to be, just like in Qigong, you need to be aware of your body, your space, especially when you move into more of martial arts. So you know that this is my area. Understanding boundaries, not hugging someone if someone doesn't want to be hugged, not forcing that on someone just because it's some aunt or uncle that's a family member, doesn't mean that they have to kiss them goodbye, for example. Little things like that needs to be there. You can give them an empowerment at a very young age, so it's their choice, and knowing that they are safe and that they can feel safe, and you can cultivate that safe space, and knowing that their safe space is them, that even if they're upset with you, which will happen as they grow through their teens, that they can go and have a room and cultivate and having personal space and sacred time for self. So I feel that actually starts earlier than teens. It's not mentioned here. And obviously this is a good book to interject that if that's something that you are wanting to know about. Physical development, obviously explaining. It is important for young women to prepare their bodies to be strong enough to carry another being inside of them. A pregnant woman must produce sufficient blood to nourish the governing fetus. Her physical body needs to be strong enough to carry a child. For this, she needs a good diet and exercise, movement, and what we put in. In most schools, competitive sports are the basics of physical education. This can be very invigorating and develop the masculine edge, because it tunes into that masculine competitive side, which thrives on challenge to create wholeness within young women. Inclusive and expressive activities like creative dance will bring out the feminine, as I said, qualities of grace, flow, and connectivity. Qigong, which is what I teach, so hence I'm going to be on this one, which plays with The archetypal animal movements and powers encourages a range of expressions such as strength, the tiger, and you actually hold your hands like this, the magic of the dragon and the moving, so you can simulate that. So I haven't actually, to be honest with you, I don't think I've seen Qigong for children. So maybe it's something I can do. I might actually, reading this to sit, I'm thinking that would be really fun to do with the kids, and especially some of the brocades with the animals. So you can make it, adapt it a little bit for kids to play with, but it gets them, because Qigong, you move every part of the body, you work through the lymphatic system and you get the blood pumping through all the flows of the liquids within the body, and the joints and the movement, and it covers everything, and the movement of all the energies. The magic dragon, the elegance of the divine feminine begins with education of girls. Hence, I say good for girls. Because also then they will teach by knowing the boundaries, boys naturally. So I did wonder if there was one for my son. And I've not seen one, because I think it's just as important for them to understand in their own way that they have a balance of, like, that horrible expression, boys don't cry, everybody, that can do such damage. So knowing that actually it's okay to show emotions and to seek comfort and to understand and nurture that side of yourself doesn't make you weaker, actually makes you stronger in understanding yourself, and your own emotional intelligence makes you more mature in understanding self. Emotional development. It's important to give teens an opportunity to be teens, although learning to be responsible and caring for their family and environment is good practice. Too much responsibility can be a burden. Be mindful that your teens do not play parental roles for their siblings or even their parents. Now, I can hear lots of parents like, oh, but it's good to teach responsibility. She says why. Teens need to act out their rebellious chi without harming anyone. Rebellious chi will create new revolutions for us all. We can all learn much from our children. Body language, image. Teen girls should be encouraged to accept their bodies just as they are. Whatever their shape, size, and fitness level, through this aspect, they will love and take care of themselves through praise and encouragement. Parents play an important role in helping young men and women to see their unique beauty. Teens should be encouraged to practice the inner smile by smiling lovely to themselves. So inner smile, we're going to do this. Inner smile, I want you to put your dominant hand, they also be masculine, but just a dominant hand on your belly, the other one over the top. Close your eyes. You can do it sitting, we'll do it standing in a nice rigid pose, which basically means gently with the hip width apart, relax the shoulders, feel into the body, and just smile. You may feel a bit silly. You're actually using the muscles, but smile. And what I like to add is like smile and feel about what would make you smile, because you're signaling to the body, I am safe, I'm happy. And you're tapping into, again, releasing out of that reptilian part of the brain that we're evolving out of, the sympathetic nervous system, and instead calming, being in the calm emotions. And the more you practice at doing this and having that as what is your set point of your brain activity, and what I mean by that is that your chemistry or your brain chemistry gets used to a certain thing and it can get addicted to it. For example, if on the way to work you get stuck in traffic every morning and get agitated, when you get agitated, the first time you get agitated, your brain creates the chemistry that creates that agitation in you, okay? And then every morning, if you're doing that at the same time, it starts to have an expectation of that and creates it. regardless. So on the Saturday and Sunday, around those times, you may still feel that agitation. It's why we recommend meditating. So you can use this for the better at the same time every day. So the expectation of the chemicals is of those nice leveling rather than of those cortisol hormones that are the stress hormones. So again, this can have a profound effect on your body, the way we deal with things. And from the information that Alice from my Healthy Habits Club coach, she would be telling you that that actually impacts in menopause and in women as well, which I'm sure the book will go into. So I feel it's important when you do Inner Smile to practice, so that your go-to is, when we meditate, we don't meditate to clear the mind. This is the misconception. We meditate, when we first start to meditate, you won't clear your mind. You have about 1 trillion thoughts a day. But what you do learn to do is to observe and become in an awareness and consciously that you are not your thoughts. Instead, you're the observer of them. And so when they come up, you get more practiced at just observing them like leaves and being able to practice being and having that few seconds. So if something comes up, it doesn't mean that it's agitated, but it means that you kind of have this leeway. You don't instantly go, the cortisol doesn't rev up, because you're able to take breath more. You become practiced at being able to assess things in a different way. Those that meditate aren't as reactive because their brain chemistry works slightly different, having practiced keeping that calm. It doesn't mean we don't lose our temper, but it means that in certain moments you are able to take a step back maybe in this way, whereas you might, if you hadn't practiced that, be more reactive to things. So Inner Smile is the start of that, because it's a practice of just tuning into your body and self-love. Where are we? Smile by smiling lovingly to themselves. So with regards to the body, that was, sorry, I got a little bit distracted. Let's focus opposite back, as Matt Schaefer would say. Inner Smile by smiling lovingly to themselves in the mirror. So just like you would, Louise L. Hay is a big fan of mirror work, and this is another thing to say, to look in the mirror and say, I love you, and or I'm willing to learn to love you. Hand here if you feel like there's resistance. That will help with the body. It's kind of, so you feel that protection in your body's muscle memory as you're releasing. And perhaps gently remind I love myself can be posted on the mirror. This self-love will show as an unmistakable inner glow. This isn't about selfishness or creating ego, because actually what happens is you feel quite raw, because if you try this yourself, and I recommend you pause the video and go and do this so you know what I mean. Are you back? If you haven't done it anyway, don't worry. Please do. I invite you to try this. This is one of the things in the members group that we worked with on my Patreons. We did this as a group together, and we got my members to look in the mirror, and you'd be surprised what comes up. I mean, even it's like, oh, I can see that little bit. Oh, that's what's there. Or oh, there's a bit of grey hair coming in, and just instantly you'll notice the mind goes to certain things. It might be, oh, well, there's a little bit of a tummy, or whatever, or I'm not sure if I look a bit tired today. Well, being able to actually say that and then love yourself regardless is really important. It teaches you to understand that you are not this, to move beyond, and it will bring up other emotions as well, especially the adults. But children, they look in the mirror and they have no past. They're like, ooh, and having fun with it. So if they learn to do that and learn to laugh at themselves and be in that state of happiness, you're cultivating your bliss energy, which is really, really good. Your joy energy, as Donna Eden would say. So radiant circuits, I think she calls it, can be posted on the mirror, so little notes, and that's what Louise L. Haywood recommended. So girls should be encouraged not to wear underwire bras, as they can disrupt breast development by cutting off the flow of chi. So most bras now, especially when they're growing, don't have a wire. They are quite fabric, but you can look into that if you have someone that's got a bigger that needs more support. There are ones with more shoulder support because it's to do with the shoulders and the weight and the way that weight hangs, so they don't go like this to try and hide themselves, but they're still keeping their posture because that can affect posture. Girls should be encouraged not to wear underwire bras, as they can disrupt development by cutting off the flow of chi. Breasts need room to grow. A plant in a small pot will not grow to its fullest potential. Girls can be taught to massage their breasts, which will encourage them to grow firm, full, vibrant, and just the right size for them. Also, it's important, obviously, with things like breast cancer and knowledge and awareness of that. One of the things that Qigong Master Chung, I think, had a woman do who was suffering for Qigong, right, is hand over the nipple. And I spoke about this before, both sides. You can do it in the shower. I do it after the shower. So 36 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 36 times one direction, 36 times straight after the opposite direction, and then hold. What that does is it massages every day, daily, the tissue, so there's no stuck energy that gets there, but you're not going to get any flow to prevent, as a prevention, and to continue. And as a daughter of a mum who died of breast cancer, this is something I just do it now, and I'm like, it's second nature. It's part of putting on my body cream routine, and it takes less than a minute to do that. So you can add that into the routine. It can be part of that, as when you put, say, putting on cream, and in the same way when you massaging certain lymph nodes and certain acupressure points can be. And that's how you do it, because this will help the blood circulation. It sinks in better, however you want to word it. And that's part of your self-care. That's part of self-love, looking after yourself, cleaning and washing and making sure that your hygiene is good. And that includes energetic hygiene. Initiation, becoming a woman. In the past, communities would celebrate the day when a girl became a woman through song, dance, challenging games, and feasts. A young woman's entry into adulthood had traditionally been marked by community-wide celebrations. Many modern people are now developing ways to bring this sense of ritual initiation back into our lives. Parents and communities around the world are rediscovering and creating opportunities for coming of age celebrations. Now, understanding the sacred side of this is important. This isn't about her now being sexually active. Possibilities later of that whole to be on show, which in some cultures that's what it was, and it got distorted over centuries. So I want to interject, this is about her understanding and knowing that this is it's normal, and it's not to be feared. Unfortunately, in some countries, as at this time of moon pudding, that isn't the case. This is something that we are shifting out of, hopefully. I have hope. First, create safety and a heightened respectful atmosphere by setting sacred space for your rite of passage ceremony, invoking the power of the directions and natural spirits, since our feminine cycle is part of nature. So this is just a suggestion of an invocation. I will read on. I would suggest coming together in a sacred circle, like we do with our circles, our monthly free circles, which is like my cousins, my aunts, my friends. We talk about what's happening with us. It's a chance to share, and inviting them is like that as being like, now I can be part of this circle of sharing with these women and their wisdom and their knowledge. There's red tent community things if you want to have a greater, if you've not got lots of female family members. There are groups, but I think this is where some of this gets lost, because when that's not there, that support nurturing network's not there, that gets looked for in other ways that don't necessarily have the right wisdom. And so that will naturally happen. You will look with that for friendships. It might be that their friendship groups, they have a regular thing. Maybe they go to the cinema once a week. Maybe they all like to go watch a concert. I don't know. But it doesn't have to be, it can be simple. It can be a thing that you facilitate for them to help them and guide them through that as a mum. Maybe they don't relate, but you could set up, so, actually, maybe once a month, you do a thing with your girlfriends and you take it in turns, or they all go for like a walk, or you go for a walk and then they can be there. So easing them into that sense. This is a ceremony that you can do, though, that's there. I like to, and my children see me each season practicing like letting go. So I will burn stuff in the fire, and we would write down stuff on the list, and I would always include them. So even just including them in your own ceremonies, writing down what we're letting go of this month, what did we want to happen that didn't, but we're going to let it go. We're going to surrender it to the fire, and trust that it's gonna happen, or maybe talk about why it didn't, and just release our feelings about that, so it comes up and we don't bottle stuff down, which is more of less official, but so they have an understanding that that's there if they want that, but you're not forcing them to do that. We call on the spirits of the West and the metal element to empower our lives with courage and integrity. We call on the spirit of the North and the water element to provide our lives with wisdom and peace. We call on the spirit of the East and the wood element to fill our lives with kindness and abundance. We call on the spirit of the South and the fire element to infuse our lives with love and compassion. We call on the spirit of the center and the earth element to support our lives with openness and trust. We call on the spirit of the heaven and earth to guide and nourish our highest destiny. So invite people to share from their hearts through a ritual like passing around a talking stick or offering a blessing of flowers. So quite nice to do out in the park or in nature if you're doing it with a younger one. Creating a unified field through chanting words of spiritual power, dancing and drumming, a beautiful way to animate the passage into a new phase of life. In the center is a tunnel of people with their arms making an arch. The young moon goddess walks through the tunnel after her first moon blood, where she is blessed with words and gentle touch is welcomed into the woman circle. So for me, if you don't resonate with the moon and you're more aligned with the sun, you could do this out in nature, on a beautiful sunny day, do the same arch and feeling that like lease of life and feeling the sun, still dancing around with the energy and allowing that. You could maybe have crystals and talk about different crystals that would help to that help with pain. You could teach them little things that they can do. I would certainly teach them the massage points for period pains and menstrual cycles, and to honour the uniqueness of each young woman by creating an opportunity for her to share, for her to shine and offer a gift of her own creative expression. So in all the creative ways. I'm going to leave it there for today, and okay, no, or we can continue just because that does really actually. In addition to initiation rituals, there are regular habits and practices that can help bring a sense of honour and celebration to a girl's relationship with her body. Fertility celebrations. Menstrual blood is not just discarded menstrual from the uterus, but is sacred essence, vital for life. We highly recommend watching the movie The Moon Inside You. I haven't seen this, so I'll have to watch this myself. And Monthlies by Diana Fabianova. Both films are about young girls coming into puberty and menstruation. Families can have a welcoming attitude to menstruation. As with every cycle, a teen's body is preparing a feast for a child to grow. By honouring the fertility within each teenager, they will promote abundance in their own lives and the earth around them. There are many traditions where teenagers can be taught to honour the earth each month as they pour their menstrual blood into the earth with a prayer. I'm not sure. I will continue to read what's in the book, but for me, that doesn't resonate. That doesn't sit right. That feels like a blood sacrifice. I don't feel that you shouldn't be honouring your own energy in that way, but I feel that energetically that would be too much for me personally. But I will read on. that would be something that I would leave out and add. Where are we? The blood can be used to paint a medicine wheel symbol, for instance, across within a circle to signify the root chakra and honour the faces of our 4 directions into and below. See, I would think that instead, I will offer another solution, understanding and having it's actually called a moon cup, but just being thankful to the body, being thankful for the process, being thankful for your life-giving energy, and just having a little bit of appreciation and teaching them that instead. Other ways that they can use, obviously moon cup being more ethical and sustainable nowadays. Just knowing about the different things that you can do, and that would be a way of honouring the earth without being quite so gross with that. But maybe that's me, and maybe that's my perception. I'm not in judgment of this. I'm just saying that doesn't resonate with me. So anyway, normal self-care. When mothers are practicing breast and yoni massage as part of their regular self-care, by example, their daughters sense that this is natural and normal. Don't know whether I would want my daughter seeing me doing yoni massage, but I certainly have said to her, like when I wouldn't stop, I've seen parents go, oh, don't do that, because they're embarrassed. That to just say, I just sort of said to mine, yes, that's your body, you can touch that, but you don't do that in public. That's not polite. It's what I was like burping, you always say pardon. It was just a case of teaching manners and etiquette. I always said to them, that's not to be done in public. You don't do that in front of people. But I didn't tell them off, because that's their body, that's sacred to them, and they're entitled to touch their body. Whereas I have seen people, no, you mustn't do that, it's wrong. Because again, you're reinforcing that self-touch and understanding your own body, which is something we all need to do and understand and to know it works. Just to be told it's wrong creates these concepts of shame, and pushes things behind closed doors in that sense. What that it's not for someone else to do. Later on, you can say, like, when you're ready to have a baby with a partner, etc. But as a young child, that is, yes, that's a no. Someone shouldn't be touching you there. That's your body. You can touch yourself, but no one should be viewing you do that. This is a private thing that you do for yourself. You don't have to go into that detail. It depends on the age, obviously. So, but not having shame around that, I think, is important. So movement, transforming emotions with movement-free emotions. So body descriptions like martial arts, gymnastics, and dance will help young people feel their power and boost their self-esteem. Enjoying their activities without self-criticism and competition or comparison is important. These kids are physically active, which channel sexual desire and emotional states. Give young people a sense of self-control and self-mastery. Dancing is a way for young people expressing their fertility. Folk dancing are a safe way for young men and women to meet with complementary settings. We don't really have dances as much anymore. So kind of clubbing, I suppose it would be now. I have seen some stuff, but it's not as popular as it used to be. You used to like see young dances, but maybe it's becoming popular, I suppose. But folk dancing, as I said, is not quite as popular here anyway. Dancing with a way that young people express their fertility. So folk dancing, what else would you say? During folk dances, there are in a space of celebration and joy. They can express themselves through movement and feel that who they are in energetically attracted to beyond external appearance or status. Dancing helps release inhibitions and shyness around the body and helps young people open their hearts to one another. I recently saw something, this is actually on this morning, and they were talking about loneliness and how that like it's causing issues with health. So recommended getting out and dancing, and they had an example of a tango and how it's helping people to come out of their inhibitions to dance, to meet people, to socialize, to get back into the game, as they were saying. These were older people on their own, and actually give them that zest for life. It's opening up to that creation energy. As I say, it doesn't close off. So it's important. Pagan fertility rites like maypole dancing, I love that. So we go to a beautiful place called Beaver Castle, where they do that every year. You can dance around the maypole there, and people get involved, and it's fun, and we're all dressed up, and you sort of see that. And it doesn't have to be ritualistic, but it's getting involved in the community somehow. There might be stuff locally that you can do. Dancing, poetry, the sexual alchemy mythology with the spiral of the colourful flowers, feminine ribbons that were around the masculine erect pole. That's the symbology behind it. But the turtle and the buffalo qigong practice in chapter 7, when we get there, we'll talk about that. We'll get the fire awakened in the sexual palace. Awakening energy is moving up the spine. So it's the Kundalini energy referred to in the Indian yogic practices, up the spine to the brain and down the flood of the body to the Dantian. When teenagers practice this, they are more alert in their mind and can get their homework done, and have more time to play. Now, it's not just about sexual energy. When you have that spinal bone, so this is another practice that you can do to awaken the pituitary gland in the brain. So this little, think about behind your forehead, this little cone-like area in the brain, and energy flowing up to that and holding. We do this with breath when we hold and releasing that down. Now, when you're in fight or flight, you can't access that. Again, this is about our evolutionary, but also when this is awakened, like they're saying, the wiring and firing of the brain is a quick response. It's got more energy to do what it needs to do. That's where the energy is flowing to, and makes you is great for the brain. So when you're connected and in balance, what the ancient teachings are saying is that that can be directed like for study, for homework, for learning, and it's what you're putting where your focus is. So bringing, just like with breath and calm, and again, meditation in itself can then mean you're opening up that response where you're more creative thoughts, because the thoughts actually don't come from the brain. We know this. I always look these two up, ECG or EEG, the ones that they stick on your head. They know that they don't come from here, they come from out here into here. So we pick them up, they're kind of around this area, which is interesting, don't you think? Anyway, so the turtle and buffalo Qigong practice. Practice this, they are more alert. So it's awakening up that energy. So menstrual health, the ancients called menstruation heavenly water. Heavenly indicates the true chi descending from the heaven, and water indicates heavenly clouds generating water. The kidneys store our essence and are responsible for our growth. The kidneys need to be strong enough to ensure that there is an abundant supply of blood in the core channel, the sea of blood, to overflow from the uterus. Menstruation marks a heavenly perfection stage during which the body can discharge excess fats, proteins, and impurities. The body will also discharge physical toxins, imbalances, or suppressed emotions during this time. Cooperate with this natural process by breathing out impurities and essence into the earth. So grounding out that energy and release. Right, not sure where I was. I'm just going to go back. Interrupting. So we were saying about menstrual marks, healthy purification stage during which the body can discharge excess fats, proteins, and impurities. The body will also discharge physical toxins, imbalances, or suppressed emotions during this time. Cooperate with this natural process by breathing out impurities and excess into the earth. Now, I'm going to stop that there because it's moving on. Next time we're looking at lunar alignment, the cycles, menstruations, ovulations, lunar alignment of birth, PMS, and diet, reducing painful periods, avoiding ovulation, the menstrual practices, warming up your ovaries, places, womb wrapping, womb breathing, and red spiral. All of the practices that you can do, observing cervical mucus, natural method of birth control, dual contraception, conception, and I believe this might go into sacred sexuality. If it doesn't, then I'll add some of understanding conception during that, and preparing fertile ground, which I have a meditation, a womb meditation I recorded I'll see if I can have that. Yeah, preparing the room. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. So anyway, thank you for joining me. Please like, share, anyone you think you would find this interesting, and the rest of this will be on the Read by Tracer playlist, where there's this book along with Beth Kettleton's Freedom Seeker, and we will be working through a couple of other books which I have here on Chinese medicine and more Qigong-based practices. So thank you for watching the self-help, self-shelf section, which is to read through these books. So I'm getting through this wisdom with you, going through it, and in particular, this book has lots of little treasures regarding our energy cultivation as women. Thank you. See you next time.